Now we're going to take up a sutram which applies only for one particular dhatu, prasiddha dhatu, dikrin karane. The sutram is 3-20. Kriyo hetu tachilyanulomyeshu. Kriyo hetu tachilyanulomyeshu. This sutram prescribes the affix ta. The anuvritti of ta is coming down from 3-16, chareshtaha, which we have studied. So the vritti of the sutram says, Eshu dyotyeshu karoteshtaha syat. When in composition with a padam, which denotes the object of the action. So karmani, karmanyapapade. The verbal root dikrinkarane may take the affix ta to express the meaning, one of these meanings, which is, one is hetu, it is the cause, a karanam, or tachilyam. Tachilyam means habitual or natural action. Tachilaha. Tachilaha is one whose nature is that, and tachilyam means the property of the state of being one whose nature is that. So habitual, natural action. So something which is always done, not done once in a while. Habitual action. And anulomyeshu, anulomaha, is one who goes with the hair, so to speak, goes with the grain. One who is amiable, who is agreeable, one who doesn't oppose, one who is favorable. That means is anulomaha. So anulomyam means amiability, favorability, agreeableness. That is anulomyam. So only when one of these meanings is to be conveyed, only then this dhatu dikrinkarane may take the affix ka, the affix ta. The affix ta. Otherwise, remember we studied 3-1 karmanyan. So we say kumbhakaraha. That time the affix is an. Because there is this one of these three special meanings is not intended there. So this affix ta may be used following this dhatu kru dikrinkarane, but only when the intention is to express one of these three meanings, which is hetu, tachilyam, and anulomyam. So hetu is karanam, the cause, or tachilyam means habitual or natural action, and anulomyam means favorability, agreeability, amiability. That's what it means. So we have to be careful. So this affix ta cannot be used all the time. It can be used only when one of these three special meanings is to be conveyed. And one more condition is that karmanyapavade should be in composition with a padam, which denotes the object of the action. Now, one thing to be made clear is that, we mentioned before, the anuvritti of karmani comes down from karmanyan 3-1, and karmani goes all the way down to 3-56. But the anuvritti of supi also comes down from 3-4, and that runs up to 3-83. Now, how do we know in a sutram like this one whether it's going to be supi or karmani? I mean, does the uppadam have to be karamoppadam? Or can it be supi? Can any sup be an uppadam? So any savantam be an uppadam. Now, the Kashika gives a good explanation under the sutram 3-4 supistaha. The Kashika says ita uttaram means itaha uttaram means from now on, from the sutram 3-4 onwards, supistaha onwards, itaha uttaram, from now on, karmani iti cha supi iti cha dvayam apyanuvartate. So dvayam api anuvartate means that anuvritti of karmani from 3-1 karmanyan as well as a supi from supistaha, both are coming down from this 3-4 onwards, because karmani comes down from 3-1 and supi comes from 3-4. So how do we decide which one is which in any given sutram? How do we know which one is applying? It says that, so this is the answer. Tatra sakarmakeshu dhatushu, in the case of a verbal root which is transitive, which can take an object, like dhatu kru. In that case, karmani ityetad upatishthate. So if it's a sakarmakaha dhatu, the transitive verbal root which can take an object, then at that time we have to understand that karmani is the anuvritti appropriate for that sutram, because it's talking about a dhatu which is transitive, which can take an object. And anyatra supiti, in the remaining cases where there is an intransitive verbal root, which cannot take an object, then obviously it cannot be karmani. It has to be supi. So any supaffix, any subantam, not necessarily karmani. So this is the answer Kashika gives, is that ita uttaram karmani iti cha supi iti cha dvayamapyanuvartate tatra sakarmakeshu dhatushu karmani ityetadupatishthate anyatra supi iti. So if the verbal root in question is transitive, then karmani upapade. If it is non-transitive, then supi. In this case, we are talking about dhatu decreeing karane, which of course is transitive. It can take an object. So in this case, that is why we are saying karmanya papade, in composition with the padam, which denotes the object of the action. So that is one important thing to keep the anuvrittis, to understand where the anuvritti of karmani is coming and why supi is not taken in this sutram. So now with that, the meaning of the entire sutram becomes when in composition with a padam which denotes the object of the action. So karmanyupapade, as we just discussed, the verbal root kru, decreeing karane, may take the affix ta to express the meaning of a cause, which means hetau, or habitual natural action tachilye, or amiability, agreeability, favorability, which means anulomye. The derivation here is very straightforward. It is going to be along the same lines as we derived nishacharaha or kumbhakaraha, all similar steps. So here let's look at it quickly. In the udharanam, in the meaning of hetau, is dukkham karoti iti dukkakaram ajnanam. This is an adjectival form, just like the other form which we have derived so far in the Krudanta section. Later on, we'll be seeing noun forms, but those come in the third quarter of chapter 3 of the Ashtadhyaya. Right now, we are deriving adjectival forms because this is all kartari krit. Let's not forget kartari krit 3, 4, 67. We are not repeating it every sutram, but unless stated otherwise, every krit pratyaya is to be used to denote the agent of the action. So of course agent could be somebody, something, could be something also. It doesn't have to be a sentient being, but it is definitely an adjective to that agent. So dukkakaram is an adjective to ajnanam in this case. So ajnanam is dukkakaram, means dukkham karoti, but it has a special meaning, means dukkhasya hetuhu. This is not like kumbhakaraha. What is the difference between this and kumbhakaraha? Kumbham karoti to kumbhakaraha. There the potter physically makes the pot. It's not like he is the reason or the cause. So he is making the pot. But here it's not like ajnanam is like manufacturing the sorrow. It is the cause of the sorrow. It's the karanam, the reason. The reason for the sorrow is ajnanam. So this is the meaning, that is hetau. So dukkhasya hetuhu ajnanam ityarthaha. So this is in the sense of hetau. Derivation straightforward now. Take dukkha plus nyas, same steps as we have done in the last 2-3 examples. By kartakarmano kriti, a shashti bhakti is used here, nyas, because it's in connection with a krudantam, which is kru plus ta. So by this sutram 3-20, krinyo hetu tachilyanu lomyeshu. Any new Panini sutram, please recite it as many times as possible. So 3-20 allows us to use this affix ta with the verbal root kru when we have a uppadam, which is the object of the action. So here dukkha is the object of the action. So all the conditions for applying using this affix ta are satisfied, because we have in composition a padam which denotes the object of the action, which in this case dukkha. Yes, we have the verbal root kru. We also have a meaning of a cause, the reason for that thing to take place. So this is the ajnanam is the reason for the sorrow. So now the remaining, always check the vritti. The vritti is like, you should check it like a lawyer to make sure that all the conditions are satisfied in the case that you're considering before perform the operation. Okay, the remaining part of it is quite straightforward. The term karmani, which comes as anuvritti into the sutram from karmanyan, which you already have discussed, ends in the 7th case, hence dukkha nyas, which is the object of the karma padam of karoti, gets the upapad-sञ, hereby 3-192. tatra uppadam saptami stham. And after that we remove the it letter by chututasya lopaha, so the takarasya it sanya, and then we do the gunadeshaha by sarvadhataka ardhadhatakayoho uranraparaha, so we get dukkha-nyas kar comes dukkha-nyas kara, and then we form the compounding as usual with between dukkha-nyas, which is the uppadam, we form a compound of that with kara, which is the kridantam. Again, the usual reminder is that here kara is not a subantam, but that is okay because 2219 says uppadam ating. As long as we are not forming a tingantam, we can go ahead and form the compound, even though kara hasn't taken a supratyaha. So that is fine. That is the use of the sutram uppadam ating. That's the speciality of that. That the compounding can be done even though we don't have a second subantam. Dukkha-nyas is a subantam, but kara is not. But upapadam ating allows us to compound. So upapadam samarthena shabdantarena samasyate. Atingaschayam samasaha. Doesn't have to be subantena. This has to be only samarthyam has to be there. So because otherwise normally in the entire adhikara samasaha, the anuvritti of sup and then sahasupa comes down. So unless some other provision is made, it's always sup with a sup. In this case, Panini has made a provision by saying ating. Okay, and then since dukkha linyas is the upapadam, it gets the sanya of upasarjanam by 1243. Samas prathama nirdishtam samas upasarjanam. And so in the sutram upapadam ating, you have to look at this samasa vidhayaka sutram, which is upapadam ating. In that, the prathamantam padam is upapadam there. Upapadam. So that which is the upapadam gets the upasarjana sanya by 1243, and then upasarjanam purvam by 2230. So dukkha-nyas becomes the prior member of the compound. So you get dukkha-nyas kara. This entire samudaya gets a pratipadika sanya by kritta is the samasascha, and then supo dhatu pratipadika yoha as usual. We get dukkha kara. So the steps are very similar to what we have before, nothing special. The only special thing here is that this has to be used in one of these three meanings. So the meaning conveyed should be one of these three meanings of hetau, tachilye, athva anulomye. That's the speciality here. That's the important thing here. Now let us take one example in the next meaning, which is tachilye. Tachilye. Tachilaha means that's his habit, and tachilye means an habitual action, not a once in a while action. So dayang karoti tachilaha dayakaraha. Tachilo dayakaraha sajjanaha. Again, these are all adjectives. So sajjanaha dayakaraha sajjanaha. So a noble person who is kind, who makes kindness, who's habitually kind. He's not kind once in a while, but habitually he's kind all the time. Naturally, habitually, he's always kind. So that is so it doesn't become dayakaraha. So we don't use karmanyan. Instead, we use this sutram 3 to 20. Kriyo hetu tachilya nulomyeshu, because this is tachilya. So it is a noble person who is habitually, naturally kind, always kind. Dayakaraha. So that is dayang karoti tachilo dayakaraha. This is important. Unless this meaning is here, we cannot use this sutram. Derivation is the same as dukkha-kara, same thing. And anulomye means somebody who is favorable, amiable, who is not opposed to, who goes along with what is said, what is told. So ajñam karoti anuloma ajñakaraha. Ajñam karoti anuloma. Anuloma means he goes along the grain, along the hair, so to speak, which means he goes along. So he is favorable, agreeable. So ajñam karoti. So he whatever he's told, he does. So that is he is unopposed to that. He goes along with it. So ajñam karoti. We don't use karmanyan. We use this sutram to get the affix ta, because we do have it in the sense of anulomye, amiability, favorability, agreeability. So we get the form ajñakaraha. Ajñakaraha sevakaha. It's someone who serves, and he follows the orders. He does what he's told. So that is why ajñakaraha, he goes along with what he's told. He is agreeable to that, amiable to that. So this is the sutram here. Now since this dhatu is a very important dhatu, as you know, it's one of the most important dhatus in the entire language. So that is why this sutram also is important, and we'll have many examples on this, and you can also now find examples. So where you see karmanyan not being used, you don't see the kara at the end, but you see kara. In short, in those places where you see the affix and not being used, but the affix ta has been used, which is dhatu kru, in a upapad-samasaha, then you can come and check whether this sutram has been used, provided of course you have a karmanyapapade, you have the object of the action in upapadam. Okay, now moving on, and let's consider one example in the feminine. Now these are all adjectives as we just said, so you could be qualifying someone masculine or feminine. If we are qualifying a feminine entity, then we have to add the appropriate feminine affix from the adhikara of striyam. So let's take an example here in the sense of hetau again. So going back to the meaning of hetau, the udharanam here is yashah karoti iti yashaskari vidya. Yashaskari vidya. So vidya is the kartri, she's the doer of this action, and here in the special meaning she's actually the cause of that what is being done. So yashah karoti, so knowledge is the cause of success or fame. So yashah karoti, the yashaskari vidya. Now in order to get this sakara here in the sandhikaryam, we have to take another sutram, because by the rules that we know so far, we would not get the sakara over here. We'd get only visargaha athva pakshe. We'd get the jivva mulyaha, like ramash karoti. We don't say ramas karoti. Then how come here? Because yashaskari vidya. Okay, so let us take the next rule which will be required for this. But so the first few steps will be the same, and again the meaning here is yashaso hetuhu vidya ityarthaha. So vidya in the sense of hetu is the reason for the success. So following all the same steps, initial steps, we yashas plus nyas plus kru plus ta by 3 to 20. All the same steps, yashas nyas gets the upapad-sञ, and then we remove the it letters by chutu. Chakarasya it sanya tasya lopaha. Then we do the gunadeshaha sarvadhat karazatakayoho urannaparaha. We get yashas nyas plus kara. And again we found the compound between yashas nyas, which is the uppadam, and kara using the sutram uppadam thing. And then yashas nyas, which is the uppadam, gets the upasarjana sanya by 1 to 43. Prathamanadishtam samas upasarjanam purvam 2 to 30. And then this entire samudaya yashas nyas plus kara gets the pratipadika sanya by kritta samasascha. And now we remove the nyas by supo dhatu pratipadika yoho, and yashas now has the padasanya by suptingantam padam along with the paribhasha sutram pratyay lope pratyay lakshanam. So even though this affix nyas has taken the look elision, pratyay lope pratyay lakshanam, it leaves a lakshanam behind. So yashas is isubantam padam. Even though the sup affix has taken the look elision, it leaves a lakshanam behind. It leaves a mark there behind. So yashas has padasanya, and then we use sasajusho ruhu. We get the sakara gets the ru adeshaha. Then remove the it letter, the ukaraha by upadeshe janunasika it, and then karavasanayor visarjaniyaha. So we get yashaha kara. At this point, the sutram 8337, would have applied. Kuppoho kahpaucha. But instead, here in this case, there is a special sutram 8346 which applies, which comes into effect. And that will be our next sutram to complete this example.